This particular placement in my top 10 in particular is probably one which will surprise a number of people. Not necessarily those who knew that this used to be my favourite car, because it would be relatively unlikely for it to go back up to that spot again, although it's possible, I guess, but it is one which I believe a couple of people did expect to be at least in the top 3, maybe even number 1, the Zonda F. I talk about it a lot on the channel. It's my favourite Pagani, hands down. It has my favourite interior of any vehicle ever, car or bike, so in that way it is number 1. But it's more so the overall package that makes the Zonda F so good. It's the kind of car where, and you, if you're honest about it, cannot say this about many supercars, you can talk about any detail of this car, down to the etching of the logo or the weave of the carbon fibre or the style of the wheels, the interior, the choice of having this blend of wood with Gothic style, having a buckle on the glove box. All these little details are what make Pagani, not just the Zonda F, but Pagani as a brand, so exquisite in terms of how they make cars. And there are very few brands that I would put even close to that. A couple that I would be Spiker, definitely, and perhaps Koenigsegg, although I know a lot of people love the interiors on Koenigsegg's. The main thing that I love about Koenigsegg interiors is the visibility. You've got that huge wraparound window, which is fantastic. I'm a big fan of cars that have a lot of space to the feel of them, which is why as well I love stuff like the Nardo, or even the Zonda. They have that glass roof appeal, which just makes the car feel more spacious. I love that. But with the Zonda, it really does go above and beyond in terms of interior design. It manages to look almost like a steampunk supercar, but in a way that isn't cliched. It pulls it off so well. It's a true piece of art. You really have to say it's a piece of art for sure. And it's, I would say, one of the top 10 best looking cars ever made. Could be number 1, potentially. Not enough to make it my favourite though. So why is that? Well, to be honest, I'm not sure. I think to some degree it's a car that, although I literally love every single thing about it, I love the engine, the performance, the look, the interior, the sound, it's incredible across the board. But, for whatever reasons, purely down to personal preference, I guess, I would definitely choose other cars over this one. If I had this car sitting in front of me, there are certain other vehicles that if they were there next to it, I would choose them over this. Now, in terms of the top 10 breakdown, and even the entire list, it doesn't necessarily mean that if a car comes higher that I would always choose it over something else. For instance, a car that's much lower, or a bike like the Agility Saetta way down in the 40 region, that was rated lower than the Panoz LMP car. I prefer the Panoz, but if I had the option of owning one, of course I would choose the bike, because I wouldn't be able to use the Panoz. Likewise with the Zonda, it's a car which features so high because I have such a huge amount of love and respect for it, but at the same time, I would definitely choose other cars or even bikes over this. So for me, it's not really a question that it would be in the top 10. Of course it's going to be. It's one of the best supercars ever made. I would argue the best supercar ever made, and I know a lot of people would argue the McLaren F1 is even better. For me, I've never been a fan of the McLaren F1, for the same reason that I'm not a fan of Porsches. Too clinical. I don't like cars that just do the job, but are kind of boring about it. And I know to say a McLaren F1 is boring sounds like a weird statement, but to me I don't just mean the way it drives. I mean, the interior, for instance. The interior of a McLaren F1 is great in some ways. Central mounted driving position is very cool. It allows you to have 3 seats, which is very practical. I love it. But black leather everywhere, or black rubber even, very race focused, almost no creature comforts, and, let's be honest, very little stylistic flair. The McLaren F1 is very much so a means to an end. It's a car that's designed to achieve a purpose, and although that is beautiful in its own way in terms of purity, like a Chaparral 2J would be, to me that doesn't even come close to something like a Spiker or a Pagani, cars which are true pieces of art, something which you don't necessarily need to win a race for the car to have a purpose. You could just sit it in a museum next to a famous painting, and it would still look fantastic. It would look like it should be there. It is a literal piece of drivable art. And there are 3 cars in particular which I always put in that category. The Zonda F, the Spiker C8, and the Maserati MC12. All 3 of them are, as far as I'm concerned, visually perfect designs. The Zonda F, though, goes above and beyond most other supercars in terms of everything being put together. It's a car which, although many people don't feel as strongly about it as I do, I would say it's a car that has nothing which you can fault it for. No downsides, nothing which needs to be improved, and nothing which, even when Pagani themselves tried to improve it with cars like the Cinque, the Tricolore, the HH, all the dozens of other special editions that they made, they're all nice, of course, but none of them to me were better than the Zonda F. They were faster, but that's not the point. It's not about making it faster. Pagani has never really been about being the fastest. Even though the Huayra is a lot faster, it's still nowhere near the fastest car in the world, because that's not what it's about. Again, just like Spiker. Now overall, the Zonda F is the kind of car that the more I talk about it, the more it seems that it should be even higher. And I know that seems strange, but there is just something about it which, for whatever reasons, as much as I love it, and as much as I respect it, I can't put it higher, because there are definitely other vehicles which I would choose over it if it actually came to owning one. So in an abstract favourite way, it definitely deserves to be here. In my dream cars kind of way, not so much. But certainly an incredible car, and one which I will continue to talk about on the channel, because it really is such a good machine. One of the best supercars ever, to say the least. But that's it for this pick. Of course, you can check out a ton of others in this series by clicking through at the end. But for now, as always, thanks for watching.